fucking ecstatic.
what a great way to start, Zoe. Zoe is fucking ecstatic, as are we, to be back for more Dangerous Dialogues. Woohoo! Do you know what? That has saved me an absolute ballake. Oh no, I've done the thing. It's our voices again. Oh, Tom. It's like the two worst things about starting these is like I never know what to say because I'm also trying to fiddle at the same time to mute the YouTube page.
You're fiddling with yourself. That's not good. Well, not on YouTube.
We got to start as we mean to go on. Anyway, cool. Hello, welcome to our third season of Dangerous Dialogues. I can't believe that we're 3 series deep into these for what was just really quite a random conversation one night in little car crash HQ. But here we are, and tonight we're going to talk about death. So just to kind of put that out there as a trigger warning for people, it's probably gonna be a little bit of a heavy conversation. We're gonna try and keep it as light and airy as possible because death is a challenging topic to talk about, but that's why we're talking about it. So if you haven't watched us before, Dangerous Dialogues are about unpacking those so-called dangerous topics, those dangerous subjects that people shy away from. And theatre, all of this behind us, tries to tap into a lot. So we're here to kind of talk about those things that we will tap into in theatre, but we're not doing theatre right now. We're doing a Zoom talking about them. So
you can make it a performance if you want.
I can be very performative. I have been known to be. Anyway, so yes, I'm Tom. I'm kind of here to curate this conversation a little bit, but also to add to it. I'm the artistic director at Car Crash, and I'm gonna chuck you over to Zoe, who is here to do the opposite of curating. She's here to like mess it all up.
I'm here to undertake. I'm here to undertake.
Oh, and here we go.
Yes, I'm an undertaker. No. Best wrestler, by the way, Undertaker. Love him. Hi, I'm Zoe, and I have returned, and I don't know why they've let me back. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, that was it. Okay.
Yeah, that was it.
I love it. And finally, joining us today is the wonderful Colby. Hello, Colby.
Hi, I am Colby. This is probably the best present I've ever received in my whole life. This was a belated birthday present. Just before we get into like the deep, rolling in the deep, this was a belated birthday present I got from my wee cousin, and it came all the way from America, and it's an Oodie. You know the.
Oh yeah.
Shit, you not. It's wonderful. So see if you feel like you need a warm hug without someone actually touching you. Like if you feel like, I would highly suggest getting an Oodie.
I love that. Today's video is sponsored by. It feels really weird. I've watched a lot of YouTube videos recently, being on YouTube at the moment and not being like, this video is sponsored by Surfshark. So we're not sponsored by Surfshark. We're just chatting about death. So let's kind of kick this off. And I can already tell it's going to be quite a punny evening, so that will keep it.
I was really glad that you didn't make a kick the bucket joke there.
Oh no,
you're missing out on them.
They're gonna get worse. Yeah. So I mean, tonight we are gonna try and kind of unpack this because I don't know if this is a topic that any of us will ever be able to fully understand. But I hope in the process we'll be dead funny. Okay, that's the one. That's my one. But yeah, we've been chatting for 6 minutes and we've just chatted shit. So let's get started. I just kind of want to know, and this is such a deep question, what does death mean to you? What is death? Because I don't know that I even know the answer to that question. I think for me, it feels like it's the end of something.
The end of life.
End of life.
Yeah, it's the last chapter in the book.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the epilogue.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's the last chapter in this book that we're currently in. So this book of ourselves. Anything that happens afterwards is the sequel.
You've already been recommissioned, Zoe. It's fine.
I'm surprised I've not been decommissioned at this point.
But yeah, I guess Colby, what you kind of feel differently about that?
I don't know if it's slightly bringing in the whole like religion thing here. Like I was born a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. So like always went to like church, and I made like a first Holy Communion, and I was baptized and whatever. And I don't know if I see like death being the end as such, but like now in my adult, I don't follow any of. What's wrong?
So he's having a mare. I think her mum was going to be subtle.
All right.
Sorry. No, it was nothing worse. My mum came in, she crawled along the floor, and she got up and she crawled back. And I was trying so hard not to laugh, but she was whispering to me. Continue. I'm so sorry. That was so rude of me. I'm so sorry.
Ridiculous. Come on, Zoe. We're trying to talk about death and you're sitting there corpsing. Go on, Colby.
I completely lost my. I don't know what I was saying.
You were saying how you didn't feel like death was the end of something. Your religious upbringing and.
So, but I'm not in my adult life. I would not say I was a practicing Catholic. So I think it's a mixture of both for me, as in part of my upbringing and a part of my life as an adult. I don't feel death means the end for me. I think death is like you moving on to another place. I think it's your instead of using the word death, I think it's your life as something else. I think it's your life in another world or another realm.
It's the end of the season, not the end of the series.
Yes. But that's because I also feel like I'm a spooky bitch, and I love all things like, I don't know, otherworldly. And
yeah,
so I don't feel as though when you die, that's it. I feel like that there is things like ghosts and spirits, and you can communicate with them in different ways. And like, I'm still waiting. Don't get me wrong, I'm still waiting for my mother to do like the penny thing up the door from ghosts. Like, still waiting for that. Right. So Joan, if you're listening, move on. I'm waiting for the penny. But so I'm still waiting for all that. But with that in mind, I feel like I was literally saying this to my auntie the other day. So for I don't know if you know, Zoe, but my mum passed in December of 2020. So
yes,
my mum and I were literally like peas in a pod. When I say like there could not have been a closer relationship, like that was me and my mother. And it's weird because I was saying to my auntie, it's strange because I still hear her, as in I'll be looking for something. I'll be like, where the fuck did I put his passport? Or where did I put my passport? And I'll hear her go, it's in the drawer. And I'll look in the drawer and it's in there, even though I swear I fucking looked in that drawer. But mum, when I hear mum,
that's because you never find anything until your mum's looking for it.
Yeah.
Precisely. And but then when I hear her saying it's in the drawer, I find it. Or there's loads of things like, I don't know, I'm off on a tangent here, but yeah, because I feel like
what you're talking about is this this concept that I think a lot of people have is, and I'm not trying to say it does or doesn't exist, is that there is something after death. So death is not death. Death is not a finite thing. It's, to quote High School Musical, the start of something new, is sort of what we're saying, right?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if either of you, the two of you, have ever been in this scenario, as in like being very close with someone who has like passed, or being there when someone is in their final days or whatever. But it's very strange, because when I was with my mum, there would always be certain things that she would do, and we were always like, what are you looking at? Like for the final, I would say 5 to 7 days of my mum's life, she was constantly like, she would look at you, but then so if it's really hard because none of you are right in front of me, but if I'm looking at my screen, but then I would constantly be looking like up to the corner of the room, and you would look behind you and go, what are you looking at? But it's as if she was like looking at something so intently. And you know that way where people say like they can see the light,
Yeah,
or they can see, I don't know, their loved one that's like coming to collect them, or do you know what I mean? All those stupid things that you've like heard of before. You really, like, when I was sitting there, I was always like I had my heart started pure racing, because I was like, is she saying those things? Like, that's something that I'll never know. But there was no reason for her to be looking in the corner.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm interested. Do you kind of have the same belief that there is the more to the stories we've kind of said, that, you know, there's death, but then there's something?
I do have a belief that there's something after death. I don't know what that is. I don't know if we're reincarnated. I don't know if we go to a different place. I don't know if we stay here for unfinished business, like in The Ghost Whisperer. You know, I feel like there's something else to it. But I don't have a specific belief on what that after is.
Right.
I do believe in spooky spirits. I do believe in all that kind of stuff, like Colby does. Is that because I like to believe in it, or is that because there's I feel like there's genuine proof? I don't know. It changes on the day. I have not personally had anyone super close to me pass. I've had people in the family that I've known and I've been brought up with, but not anyone that I've been like really, really close with. And I've been affected by all of them in some sort of way, but not like on the level Colby, you'll have been affected. So, like, I've never had that experience so far. But death is also my biggest fear. Because of the unknown. And it's because of the unknown that goes with it. Like, what happens once, you know, our time passes and our light goes out. That thought terrifies me.
I think that's kind of why I'm pushing in this direction a little bit. I'm intrigued if it's, and I'm not saying this to offend, I'm just genuinely intrigued if we've sort of made up this concept of afterlife as something to reassure us about death.
As like a comfort.
Yeah. And I understand that.
Exactly. We ain't gonna know until we're gone, and then we can't really come back and tell people.
Except if you're Patrick Swayze. But
yeah. Or Teresa from the Long Island Medium.
I thought you were going to say Theresa May, and I was like, what? She's dead running through cornfields.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But I mean, what do people think to that? Is it something? And I'm not trying to hark at people's religious beliefs. I'm sort of just playing devil's advocate in a way. Yeah.
It's a possibility. It is an absolute possibility. Like, there's comfort in the known. There's comfort in knowing what's going to happen, or thinking you know what's going to happen, and that comes from a lot of things. Like, a lot of behaviors are born out of fear. a lot of negative behaviors are born out of fear.
Yeah.
So fear is a big factor in finding a way to comfort yourself. R.I.P. Theresa May. Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, fear always leads to a comfort. You find comfort to alleviate that fear. And could that be the afterlife? Could that be reincarnation? It could be. There's no definitive proof as to what actually happens after we pass, apart from maybe a funeral if it can be afforded, and either you're cremated or you're buried, you know, like that's only absolutes we can say, but that's from this side of it. We don't know what's going on the other side.
Absolutely. What do you think, Colby?
I don't quite know anymore, because I, like Zoe, used to have...
I like you too.
You fucking set yourself up for that one. Anyway.
I also used to have a fear of death. However, after going through it, that makes me sound like I've reincarnated or came back.
You did go through it. It was your experience.
Yeah, after going through it, I'm not scared anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I sound like the wee boy from Home Alone. I'm not afraid anymore. And I don't know if that's really stupid, but like, if I could watch, and this is going to get brutal here, if I could watch the strongest person I've ever known in my whole life go through it, I'm not scared anymore. I'm not.
Yeah.
Because my mother, genuinely, so she had brain cancer. She literally went through 6 months of brutal chemotherapy, radiotherapy, pill form of chemo, like after another form of chemo, like diagnosis after prognosis, after months and months and months of being tumor removed, being told it's shrinking, like the whole thing. And as a single parent, I can't imagine what it must be like to have to sit in a room with your child who is old enough to know what the doctor is saying and know, like, obviously my mum was diagnosed when I was 22. So for your 22-year-old daughter to sit in a room with you and wholeheartedly know all of the words that the doctor's saying, it's not as if she could like palm it off with something else.
Yeah.
So for her to be so strong and go through all of that bullshit, yeah, I'm not scared anymore.
It's Zoe and I were just talking about this before we all came on. It is the one fact of life. It's the only thing we know is going to happen.
Only thing that's certain.
So in some senses, we shouldn't be scared of it because it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think,
it's the most terrifying thing ever.
I think you're right, Zoe. We're scared of the unknown. And I think, Colby, what you're talking about there is sort of like that unknown. It's like, you know what will come at the end, but that process potentially that leads up to it is questionable, right? So I don't think I'm scared of death in the slightest, but I'm maybe scared of how it will happen, if that makes sense. Like, I'm allergic to eggs, and I feel like people could throw eggs at me. I could get egged one day and I'd die, and just how shit would that be? Like, I wouldn't care that I'm dead. I just hate the idea of being egged to death.
Your water. They could put it in your water as well, and you could be like, "There's egg in my water. There's egg in my water."
Okay, that was one time, Zoe. For fuck's sake. But anyway, yeah, I think the unknown is the thing that's scary, isn't it?
Into the unknown. Copyright. Yeah, it's for me anyway. Like Kieran was saying in the chat as well, it's his biggest fear as well. For me, it's not. I mean, yeah, it doesn't scare me how I'm going to. It's what comes after, because there is so many
really?
stories of what comes after. Like, I don't know what's going to happen after that. And that thought terrifies me. I don't know if it just goes dark, that's it, game over. I don't know if I mean, realistically, I'm probably on a one-way ticket down that way, but you know, I like warm places, so I should be okay. And I don't know if I'm going to get reincarnated either. Don't know if I'm going to come back. You know, there has been cases of like children remembering their old lives, you know, so it's a possibility like that could happen. Like, again, not saying that's fact. There's nothing solidified as to how it's going to go. And that's what terrifies me. I just don't know what's going to happen. I don't like the unknown. I don't like not knowing what's going to happen in any part of my life.
Oh, Colby's gone. Hey, Colby's back.
Sorry. I obviously can't say from first-hand experience because I haven't died. Touch wood. However, genuinely, I think that from watching it happen, I think that you just go into a super, imagine going into a super deep sleep. Like, super deep sleep.
Don't know how that feels.
But I get you, yeah.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Because it's so strange, as in I don't know how the fuck it happened or how it worked or why it happened, but obviously, so when everything happened with my mum, the doctor who actually looked at my mum, as in took the time, my mum and I went for a doctor's appointment because at my blood is really low in iron, so I'm technically anemic, so I take iron supplements. And my mum thought she was getting like the same because she was tired all the time. She worked in the airport, so she was like constantly busy. So both of us booked an appointment together to have our blood checked, and this was us coming back in to chat to the doctor. Yes, Colby, your bloods are still low. Here's your prescription for iron tablets. And then my mum went in, and my mum was in the doctor's office for, I'm talking 45 minutes. And I was sitting outside and I was like, what the fuck is going on in there? Because like people were all pure looking at their watches thinking my appointment was 35 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Because you're like, and what's wrong with you out and what's wrong with you out? Do you know what I mean? So people were like, what the heck is happening? And then my mum came out and said, we have to go up to the REH. Now the REH is like obviously the big hospital in Paisley, because the doctor looked at my mum's face and thought she saw like a facial droop on one side. So the doctor actually thought my mum was having a stroke. So we went up to the REH, they did a scan and they found a brain tumour. Now, if that doctor hadn't taken the time to, instead of just looking down and saying, yep, iron tablets, your blood's low, see if she didn't actually look up and look at my mother, we genuinely don't know what would have happened, because she could have blacked out when she was driving. She could have, like, there's so many things that could have happened. And just through, like, I don't know, through everything, we are so, like, so many other people's families could have been affected by that one instance. Like, can you imagine if my mum blacked out when she was driving and like went onto the pavement and hit someone, or smashed into a car, or do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, thank goodness he did notice. Yeah, I think it is that unknown. It's that fear of like, what do I do? And in a situation like that where it sort of pounces on you and you go, oh shit, you've kind of got to be like really front-footed about it, don't you? I wonder, and I think about, for instance, I have been there when people have died before, and there's moments where I wondered if, although someone is physically still there, physically still medically alive, if they are actually dead, if you know what I mean.
That was
you know what I mean?
That was the point I was going to make. I lost my train of thought in my whole fucking thing. The why I'd mentioned her face, and I don't know why it happens, but after my mum had passed, I can't explain it, but she looked the way she looked way before she was even ill.
Yeah.
Like, the weirdest thing, like her face, instead of like, my mum had like she did have a facial drip, and it's as if it went back to normal. Her skin was glowing. The weirdest thing. And I do agree with you, Tom. I think there's like I don't know, there's like a brief time where I think that they can still hear you.
Yeah.
Very brief time.
Absolutely.
Which is weird.
It's weird, isn't it? The day my grandpa died, he died on my birthday. And we were all there for my 17th birthday. Yes, living the dream. It was a Friday. We had fish and chips as well. Oh, it was glorious. But my grandpa died. But so
sorry.
it's fine. But in the morning, my aunt went, "Oh, it's Bill's birthday today," and he couldn't speak or move, but he kind of raised a couple of fingers at me. Not like that. That's what my gran did when she was dying. But my I made some shit joke, and my gran was like, yeah, my grandpa sort of raised a couple of fingers just to be like, "Oh, great." So he could hear us, and he was there, but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why I wonder, drawing it back to our question from like half an hour ago, I don't know that it is actually the end of the chapter, because I feel like there's this weird fizzle out at the end a little bit, where I think, I mean, I appreciate a lot of people have experienced death, so a lot of people will have differing opinions about what that experience is like. But even with pets that I've had, because I've had a lot of pets die, I feel like you get that fizzle out. And lots of people talk about the death rattle, the sort of breathing where it starts to go like the shortness of breath, and it's like a rattle. Literally, it sounds like a baby's rattle. And I don't know, that to me is like part of that fizzle. I can't think of a better way to describe it.
It's like the end of a season when there's a cliffhanger.
Kind of.
Yeah. Or the fade to black, but with crackly white noise at the end.
It's more a mid-season break where you're like,
oh, the fucking Americans.
Exactly, where you're like, there's more in this season to happen, but I know this character is in this situation.
Yeah. I see
Colby.
that. I remember, I can't remember where it was, but someone had said that when someone is here and not, as in like that moment you said that you had with your granda, you probably found that prior to him not losing like speech and things, I don't know if you'd found, Tom, but there were, certainly with myself, there was points where my mum would be there and have a conversation, and then she wouldn't, and she would just stare.
Yeah.
And that related with something that I've either read online or seen a video about, and it was, so they had said that was that person being there in their present life, but also starting their next.
Right.
There was something, I don't know, there was something quite nice about that, knowing that somewhere in life I will meet. And whether that comes back as my own child, I don't know. somewhere in life I will meet, because sometimes that's why I think you sometimes see such a likeness in your child to like a parent. Like people say, oh, you look dead like your granny. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's where that correlation is.
Quite possibly.
Just thought it was nice.
Yeah.
It's a lovely thought. It's an absolute, in fact, like it's one of those that kind of helps, because like in talking about death, like you can only coincide that with grief, like talking about grief.
Perfect.
It's okay. I transitioned us. You're fine.
Did you look at my notes?
I'm your leeway person.
You felt me.
I did. I always feel you. Anyway, it's one of those things like that helps it with the grief stage, is to think along those lines, and it's absolutely a possibility that could have some sort of correlation. You know, there's no way to disprove that. You know, I mean, my child looks like me.
Really
so I can't. Oh God, what a shame. But yeah, when it comes to like the grieving process, I can't speak on death wise, but I've grieved people that are still alive, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I don't think with grief, I don't think that there's no time scale for grief. There's absolutely no time scale for grief. And I am a person who thinks that there is no actual getting over a death. It's learning to live with it rather than getting over it. And I hate that term. Like, oh, you just need to get over it, or you need to get over this. So you don't get over it. You learn to be able to live your life, even though this thing has happened to you.
I'll let someone else agree. It's interesting. Colby and I have been working for a very long time now on a musical that is specifically about grief, to be honest. So, I mean, I guess working through a pandemic on it, it felt like we were experiencing grief every single day. And then, of course, kind of, Colby, what's happened with your mum kind of added to that in a way. It was, I don't know, it felt quite therapeutic actually, in a sense, at a point working on it, because it was unpacking like what grief is to different people. And, you know, they talk about the 7 stages of grief, and I at times felt like we did all 7 of them, and sometimes all at once. And you're right, Zoe, there is no time frame to that.
What was also weird for us though, Tom, is, without saying too much about what we're working on, a specific date for the major event is the day that my mother died.
Yes, yeah.
Which is very, very weird. I don't know. Isn't it weird?
The universe sending weird signs, isn't
it? But I always think that after talking about grief and the fact that there's 7 stages, completely back to the point that you said, Zoe, you know how the first stage is like denial? I am, how many years? I am a year and a half, just over a year and a half on from my mum passing away. And I don't think I've even passed that stage. And that's being genuine. I still think that I will be able to make my mother dinner, or have her walk through the door, or all of these things. And I think that's why, don't get me wrong, I still get upset because I have a realisation, but I think that's why currently I'm still able to have a completely open conversation about it without it really impacting me. Because I don't know, I think I'm fucked up sometimes when I actually...
No, I completely understand that. Like when my friend's dad died, this was many years ago, and I think, to be fair, that he's probably like the closest person to me that's passed. Every time I walked in there, I thought he was going to come down the stairs, or I thought I was going to see him. Like, it didn't, I didn't process the fact that whenever I went in there after it had happened, that he wasn't going to be there, because it was just so normal for him to be there. And that was just me. I can't imagine how they were feeling, you know, because they lived with him and stuff like that. And you could always like smell him. Like it was like, even after he passed, you could always just like, you know, when you can smell people and you get a reminder of them. But yeah, no, I completely understand where you're coming from. Like sometimes it's even you just forget, you know, you get to that point where you just forget that they have, and you think, oh yeah, I better go and call this person up, or something like that. And then you're like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
So I completely, you're not you're not nuts or anything. I completely understand where you're coming from that.
My aunt literally said to me, so when I said I was talking to her, she told me something. So the final night that my aunt and I spent together with my mum, so we were my mum was obviously in a hospice, and we stayed overnight the night before that she passed. And my aunt told me the other day that we watched Forrest Gump on the telly. So we put a film on, and we were just sitting together with mum lying in bed, watching Forrest Gump. And my aunt said that I said to her, this is the last film that we'll watch with my mum, and it'll always have that like feeling. And my aunt said that Forrest Gump was on the other day, and obviously nobody else knew that that was the last film that we watched. So my uncle had put it on, and they were like, he was laughing at like Forrest Gump. And when it ended, my aunt said that she bawled her eyes out and had to tell my uncle that was the last film that we watched with Joan and like all that. But genuinely, and this is how much trauma fucks you up, I did not remember watching Forrest Gump. I don't remember saying those words to my auntie. Like, I don't remember. But that's how, like, and there's like parts of my life that I don't remember either. Like, I would say between, so my mum was diagnosed in April 2019. I would say from end of May, June, July, August. I would say from May 19 to August 19, I have no recollection of my life. I have no idea what I did, because my life was just so get up, wash mum's clothes, go to the hospital, sit in the hospital with mum for 9 hours, go home, not sleep. I would ridiculous stories that I started like painting my living room with like varnish, with wood varnish that you fucking only use for doors. And my cousins were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I was staying up till 4 a.m. because my brain was on overload. I was going.
Do you think you were almost like on autopilot at that point?
100%. But that's just trauma. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And
disassociation as well, like definitely, like disassociative.
I almost think that 7 stages of grief also come with 7 stages like before grief. And I know that sounds silly, but there's things that I would have never done as a person working up to that death.
Yeah.
That probably changed me as a human being. Like, that's a huge statement, but like things that, unless I went through 7 things till the death and the part of the grief that I'm in now, I didn't know I was as strong a person. I didn't know I was a strong person. And I think that death ultimately teaches you more about who you are. So if you as a person crumble under the death of that person, that's totally fine, but you just know that you're going to need a little bit more help. Or if you crumble at the diagnosis and you can't deal with doing the washing, going to the hospital, picking up the shop and doing this, if you can't deal with all of that, you know that in life you're going to need to have somebody there constantly to get you through it. But me being an only child, holy shit, it taught me a lot about myself. I am independent as fuck. I can do things off my own back. I can get shit done. I can look after the person that meant the most to me. Like, do you know what I mean? Death teaches you a whole lot, not just about that, but about you.
People deal with death and grieving differently. Every single person deals with it differently.
Yeah.
And how you deal with it does not make you any more or less of a person either.
No.
Like, it's like, yeah, like you were saying, like I feel like myself, I feel like I would crumble at the first hurdle. Like, I feel like that, but that's because I know me as a person and I know how emotional I am. I cry with every emotion, happy, sad, angry, all of the above. And it's just like, it's hard to find it. You'll never find one way to deal with it.
Yeah.
There will never be one, but you're right. It does teach you a lot about what you can handle and what your boundaries are and what your levels are that you can deal with. And a lot of people put on a brave face during the day when these types of things happen. And then when they're at home on their own, that's when they just kind of let it all out. Because especially if it's an illness leading to like a terminal illness, from what I believe and what I've been told, like, you want to put on a brave face for the person. You don't want them to see you shutting down when they're going through that. Because this is just what I've been told by people. Like, it almost feels slightly selfish for you to be breaking down when it's them that's going through it. Like, I've been told that people have felt like that in that sort of situations. So it's hard to like boil it down to just one way or one experience or one thing. And sometimes we do need these like disastrous, horrible things to happen to us in order to learn something from it. You know,
Absolutely.
like learning from mistakes, learning from trauma, learning from major events, stuff like that. Like, it's all a learning process, and however you deal with that at the time is how you deal with it, and it's completely valid. No matter how you deal with it at the time, it's valid because it's how you feel and it's how you're dealing, and you cannot be told how you're supposed to be dealing with a thing.
Absolutely. I think it's really interesting because this is arguably the point in Dangerous Dialogues every week where we usually say, oh, but people need to be educated better on this thing. And there's not really a way to educate people on death. And I think what we're just proving by having this conversation and everything that you've both said in the last kind of sort of section there is that I think you need to experience death to learn about it. Like, I don't think you can ever understand how you and others will feel about it until you've kind of gone through it, which is exactly what you just said, Zoe.
Like, right now, I can sympathize with people who have gone through it, but I haven't had the experience to empathize with it.
Empathize with it, exactly, yeah. No, I 100% feel that. Something you touched on briefly there that I kind of want to mention before we move on is you had mentioned about death being beyond what our sort of plain understanding of it as like a death of a person. You mentioned that like death of friendships, of relationships, like that is also very much death. Because
it is a grieving process.
And
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And it's not the same. And
you can do that with. No, sorry, you kind of broke up there.
No, it's okay. It's not the same as a person dying. It definitely isn't. It is very different, but it is still a type of death. And I think that is the sort of death.
It's a loss. It's not a death. It's a loss.
A loss. Yeah, sure. And I think
it's a loss.
That's something we would learn probably a lot younger than. Well, I know. Who knows? But I think it's interesting to note that.
Yeah, I've definitely lost a few people throughout my life that I've grieved for, and I've had a grieving process in that sense. But yeah, like you said, it's not on the same level as death. Death is death, and that's a loss that realistically can't come back. You know, there's still a
Yeah.
chance for losses through loved ones that are still living or people that you've cared about to come back. You know, there's a chance for reconciliation and stuff like that. But when it comes to death, like that, the person's just kind of gone, and you're not going to be able to reconnect with them or anything like that. But yeah, there's definitely different situations in which you deal with grief and you grieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of want to move on to thinking about post-death, and particularly one thing that irks me about the world that we live in, and we've kind of talked about this before on Dangerous Dialogues, the sheer capitalism and the profiteering that happens off of just things in life. And unbelievably, death is so expensive. It's so expensive to die. And that's just so fucking annoying. Like, you have to get a death certificate and that costs money. You have to get a funeral and that costs money.
There's a death tax.
There's a death tax as well. It literally costs you to fucking die. And all of your earnings are then taxed that go on to your next of kin. The things that are in your name are suddenly
Any
a fucking
savings,
nightmare to transfer
houses.
over. Exactly. All while you're going through a grieving process. That's not the one. Who thought this through? Who do I talk to about this? This is not the one. I think Karen.
It's the Tories.
It's not. I love to say that it is them, but this is just a thing that's been there for a long time.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, Colby, I remember speaking to you maybe about a year ago now. And was it the car, or it was something that was just an absolute nightmare that was in your mum's name?
Loads. Fuck, where do I even start? I am currently still paying lawyers' fees to have the house, my glasses are, house transferred into my name. The car, my mum had a car with Motability, because we had a Ford car when my mum was diagnosed, and she was like, quickly, Colby, fuck this car, I cannot get into it anymore. So we got a higher up car for her. And when I say to you, must have been the day after, because you have to like notify the council of a death, and they there's like a tell us once service where they like look at your mum's name or look at your person's name, and they tell all the people that your mum or person has anything to do with. And when I say to you, the day after my mother died, I got a phone call from Motability saying, "Hi there, we're sorry for your loss, we need your car back."
What the fuck?
"Hi there, we're sorry for your loss, we need the car back. You have 14 days to give the car back to us." Meanwhile, my mother died on the 20th of December. 20th of December. 14 days to give us the car back, or you'll be charged. I was literally like, motherfuckers, are you joking me? So
but like, well, come and get it then.
Yeah,
I wanted to come and get it.
I had to give this car back. I had to source a car, so I bought like an absolute £800 banger of a motor to get me from A to B.
Yeah.
Fuck. There were a couple of months, so I knew that my mum had some sort of a loan. I don't know what the loan, don't know what it was for, but she had a loan, like majority of people do in life. And 3 to 4 months after my mum died, so we're talking, it wouldn't have been December, it would have been January, February, March, April. It probably would have been in about April. I got a letter through that said, next of kin of Mrs. Joan Reid, i.e. me, and it was a letter of arrears. Oh,
the tension.
Sorry.
What was in the letter, Colby?
What did it say? What's in the box?
My phone keeps telling me it's going to die. Sorry. It was a letter of arrears. Right. And then like for the loan. I was meant to have been paying for this loan that I had no fucking idea existed. So it like I've got like defaults on my credit score now through no fault of my own. Um, because how the fuck was I meant to know I was meant to be paying this thing? So there's like so much that like it's just so much shit. Like you think, have a fucking heart, man. Like,
yeah,
how the fuck was 22? Do you know what I mean? Like, and now I have a house.
When it comes to money, they don't care.
Yeah, now I have a house. All the bills that come along with that. I had to get a full-time job. This was when I was still fucking working part-time. I had not a full-time job. I had to get a full-time job and work a big girl job. So much stuff, like insurances, fucking council tax. Fucking council tax.
Please don't. Honestly, I hate council tax.
Like, I mean, obviously, I am very grateful to my mother because she's left me a house that I don't have a mortgage on. Big up, sweet Rose. Like, she's done me a sort. I own property, which is something that a 24-year-old might, like, cannot possibly say.
Yeah.
But, like, fuck me, man. Like, council tax, boiler cover, fucking boiler cover. Like,
the choice of being an adult. Like,
yes.
Fuck
but
off.
thrust upon you. It's not, it's without consideration. It's a mutual friend of all of ours, Edward, who will be on Dangerous Dialogues in a few weeks' time as part of our kind of Pride programming. I think about him a lot when I think about death, which I'm sure he won't mind me saying, because I think I know a lot of friends, and obviously a lot of us have experienced a lot of death, but I just don't think anyone's experienced death to the level that Edward has. I just don't understand how at the age he was very young. Yeah. He was in the situation you've just described, Colby, where like before he was 18, he had a house to take care of. He had,
bills,
death certificates, he had bills, and I will eternally have immense respect for him always, because it's like how the fuck do you become an adult like that? I mean, he's very grown up anyway, but and have all that responsibility and all that. I'm trying to think of a word to describe. It's bullshit. All of that bullshit put upon you on top of your grieving process, on top of you understanding death, which none of us really do, as we've just talked about. And yeah, and I mean, as Kieran's just said in the chat there, he is an absolute superhero. Like anyone that anyone that goes through death and then has to deal with the fucking shit that comes after it is a superhero, bluntly.
Yeah. I don't know how people I don't know how people do it.
But we're gonna have to at some point. That's the
absolutely. It's guaranteed.
And
the only things guaranteed in life are death and taxes.
True. Is only for now. I think I got the tune wrong. Who cares? I've only done it twice. Anyway, yeah, cool. Just there's so many things about death that I think are so unknown and that we will never really understand until it comes our way, actually. Even experiencing it through someone else, I guess, and being there through it, I think, until we're actually there and in that moment. Lots of question marks. Unless Elon Musk solves death. Yes, Kieran.
True.
What was it you said before, Zoe? About cryogenic freezing and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Fry in Futurama.
Exactly. I think that's the thing about death. So many people are so scared of it that they just want to cheat it, right?
Absolutely. Have you seen Final Destination?
No, I haven't.
I've seen them all. Those films scar you, by the way. I still can't drive behind anything that has big, massive things of wood or metal or anything like that. Terrifies me.
It's simply perplexes me that you can have more than one final destination, because that means it wasn't the final destination. It's a stop on the route.
People having their different final destinations, Tom.
Oh, I don't know. It's I don't know.
You should watch them. You'll love it.
Well, bye,
Girl,
Zoe.
I disappeared. Hello, I'm back.
Cool. I think we're going to round up a little bit just to kind of tail off there, because I feel like that's a nice natural end. Otherwise, we'll rabbit on for ages. Rounding up comments. I've kind of realised from our last series of Dangerous Dialogues, a really nice thing to wrap us up is saying like what you felt like this conversation gave to you, why it was helpful to have, because I want other people to have their own conversations about these things. So yeah, I mean, I'll kick us off because that's a big question. For me, it's one of those topics that, because it has so many question marks about it and you just don't know what it's going to be, I think it's really healthy just to talk about it. I think death is like so stigmatized because it's so big and scary, but it is going to happen, and you're going to experience it not just yourself, but through family, through friends, through pets, through loved ones, through life. So I think it's just nice to talk about. So I'm glad that I got to have this conversation tonight, I guess. Colby.
For me, having the conversation, I always like to think about the obviously natural juxtaposition of both. Talking about death really makes you appreciate life, and shows that you really can't take anything for granted, because you don't know when the day will be the day. You don't know when the day will be the day with anyone, yourself or the people that you love. So I always think that having such a deep conversation as death, it makes you realise that you should tell people that you love them more. And if you've got stupid reasons that you shouted at someone, go and tell them, like, it's fine, I was just having a bad day, or like, you know what I mean? Silly things, because it makes you realise the important stuff.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Zoe.
I completely agree with everything Colby just said, and yourself. I definitely, talking about death, although the thought of it terrifies me. I know the more I talk about it, the more I can get used to the idea, or the more I can begin to accept it anyway. But it does, like, it shouldn't be so taboo, because it happens to everyone. Yeah. You know, literally happens to everyone. And also it is worrying and it is scary to think about that. It's like, don't dwell on the death part of it, dwell on the life, dwell on the living part. You know, like you don't die until you've lived, kind of thing. So I think, you know, like, remember to appreciate people. Like, it does remind you to appreciate everyone in your life, and not to dwell on the negatives in your life, and not to dwell on, you know, like, the hardships and that, because, you know, you've only got this life at the moment. Depending on what happens afterwards, this is the one you're living, so live it up to your best standards.
True that. Man, there's some good life mantras in that. Nice. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. Please go and have your own conversation about death, even if it's, you know, just to a pal or to your dog. Go and have a little chat and unpack your feelings and thoughts about it.
Riley!
Check if your mum's still on the floor. You can have a chat to her. But yeah, absolutely. This is the first in our new series of Dangerous Dialogues. We're going all the way through to July. We have some amazing topics this series that I'm very excited about. We have some seriously controversial topics coming up in the next few weeks. I'm really, really excited about. What the fuck did I do? What happened?
Our mum's crawling again.
Or your mum's calling again. Okay.
I was just thinking about one certain topic that we're gonna have in the next few weeks that's gonna be super controversial and super nuts.
Is it next week's one?
No.
Oh, you're talking about recycling, aren't you? Car Crash have two big events coming up that I'll quickly plug. One is our annual kind of Pride Month celebrations, where Edward, who we've already mentioned, will join us to talk about all sorts of different taboo, dangerous dialogue type Pride topics. But also, as Zoe's kind of hinting at, we have a whole section of environmental events that are coming up. Because World Environment Day is coming up. So one such topic may involve a lot of chat about recycling. So that's not so controversial, but next week we're talking about the right-left political divide, which I think may be quite juicy, and I'm very excited about it. So do join us at 8 next week. Thank you very much. If you liked what you've seen, do like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, go check out one of our other videos, because there's lots more to enjoy there. Have a lovely Sunday evening or whenever you're watching this, and we will